everybody. Thanks for joining us again. I'm Chuck with Harmony Cellars. I'm the winemaker, and today we're going to talk about our Repertoire. Repertoire is kind of an interesting wine that we do. It has no vintage. It has a proprietary name, and the reason we chose it is because it's a wine that I blend every year, and so it's kind of a winemaker's repertoire to go ahead and blend and put things together and make wine taste good. So we thought the name was appropriate. So one thing that's a little different about this, it's not from just a couple vintages. This goes way back 15 years. And there's a little bit of the wine that we started with in this blend from way back then. Back in the day, we didn't have a computer to keep track of everything, so it was all by hand, and we had the percentages fairly accurate. But since we had the computer, now we're getting down to really nitty-gritty things. So what we're trying to do here is kind of our take on a Solera method blend. And Solera is done with booze, it's done with ports and sherries, and to some extent a few wineries kind of play with it. So in Spain, where it's very popular for their sherries, Solera is just a method of you take your oldest wine out of the barrel, but not all of it, and you add a newer wine into it. And you do this over several years, so you've got maybe 4 or 5 groups of barrels with different wine in it from different times, from older to new. And you remove a bunch of the old wine, but still leave some in there. And then you bring your next oldest wine, the next older wine, and the next blend, and you progressively blend it together. What we do here is we came up with the blend the very first year, and then we put about 50% of it back into barrels and brought it out the next year and made another blend, and then we put 25-30% of it back into barrels and continued to do this over the years. And so that's brought us here. So I'll show you what we have on the computer as far as what's in it. So these are the vintages, and I'll roll it down. And this goes back to 2010 when we brought in a computer system to help us. So it's not all up to date, but it gives you an idea of what vintages are in the wine and how much those vintages are. And you can see it kind of varies from year to year, what's in there. And that just depended on what we thought would make a good blend. So I'm going to pass this off to Brian here, and now I'll show you what varieties are in the wine. Now these varieties can be any vintage, but the grape that's in there is shown. So there's a lot of Petit Syrah, a lot of Cab, and a lot of Zin that we like to use. And then some of the other varieties that we brought in and had that we were able to use. And it all depends when we're making the blend what I want to do. So let's say this year we're just about ready to get to it. If I don't think there's enough oak in the wine and it needs a little more spice, I'll go ahead and add something that's been in maybe in some new barrels and has a little more spice to it. And it just depends. I put some Muscat Canelli in this at sometimes too, because I thought it could use a little bit of fruit. And it's just all about making a really tasty, luscious wine for us. It's just fun to do. So I'm going to get into this here, and we'll pour a little bit. So right away I noticed, man, these birds are in a bad spot. And we'll see. Maybe I can make it through. We got swallows flying all around us. Didn't get the netting up in time, and that's what happens. Anyway, nice, brilliant garnet color. And this has what I like to call cathedral walls. Other people call them legs. Very tight together, which is a sign of body, nice rich body in the wine. So first thing I get when I'm on the aroma of the wine is an aged bouquet. So to me, what that is like, it's kind of like a caramel smell. So I also get some like dark Bing cherry maybe, and kind of a plum character. And then also some nice spiciness from all the barrels that this wine has been in. And flavor-wise, so complex again. It's got an aged character, kind of just a little older, maybe just a slight caramel flavor. Getting fruit too, some cherry and like a really ripe plum, and just kind of lingering there. And it's got just a nuance of wood, just a nice touch of spice from the barrel. And the tannins are there. They're a little bit grippy, but pleasant. This is not a harsh wine at all, and that's a lot of times thanks to the aged. All right, so what would I pair with this wine? Well, I love roast beef. So Sunday night, roast beef dinner, rare, gravy, mashed potatoes, can't be beat. I also like to make a pork loin, and I'll start that in a black frying pan, really hot, sear it to get a nice coat on it, finish it in the oven, and while that's finishing up, just before, after I've rested it for a little bit, I'll throw some mushrooms and butter into that same pan that the loin was in, fry those up, deglaze the pan with some of the Repertoire, add a little goat cheese to kind of make a gravy, thicken it up, and serve that on top. It's delicious. But my very favorite way of enjoying this wine is with duck breast. Again, sauteed, rendered in a black frying pan and transferred to the oven to finish. Right before I'm ready to serve it, I'll put some onion, a little chopped onion, a little red wine to glaze the pan, throw in a couple of spoonfuls of like blackberry jam, and scrape the pan really good, and then just serve that over the duck, and it's delicious. So. Here's to everybody. Thanks for... God, Brian, I can't believe... I told you this would happen. Oh, that's gross. That's just gross. Did bird poop on you? Yes. You can't see it? Oh, jeez. Cheers, everybody. The things I'll do for my wine club.